All right. Welcome to the show, Graham.
Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, awesome. So let's see. How did this happen? We were both in the Facebook group. Was it SAC Startup Community Group?
Yep.
Yeah. And I put it out there that I'm looking for guests, and you peeped up and said, hey, I'm interested. And so I think this is going to be a fun conversation with your background. You mentioned in 2010 you had a little startup called Owly, which was iPhone based. I'll be interested to have you tell us about that. Sometime after that, you were in the crypto space, had a crypto startup which was acquired, and then now you currently work for Moov, and you can view their website at moov.io, and they are in I would just call them money moving space.
Yeah,
yeah, like making payments, stuff like that.
We call it embedded finance, but we can talk about
Yeah,
that.
see, I would never know what that means if you just told me on the street. So
it's the new hot word, so now you guys are like in with the times.
Cool. Yeah, so why don't we just like get into it and start talking about interesting things?
Sure.
So what was Owly?
Yeah, so Owly was this thing where the iPhone had just started recording video, and it actually hadn't really. We were jailbreaking iPhones so that we could download live stream apps that weren't really available in the App Store yet, and we were duct taping them to mopeds because we were live streaming moped rallies or races in the middle of the desert, and so we needed like on bike cameras that we could live stream from.
Right.
And duct taping iPhones to mopeds isn't like this safest thing to do, so we invented this mount. It was machined out of aluminum that you could put your iPhone in, and then you could attach it to like professional camera equipment, and put microphones on it and all that.
So like
stuff.
Burning Man was like the perfect test case.
Yeah,
Okay.
we actually there's a famous Korean director named Park Chan-wook who filmed an entire video or entire movie using this device because he wanted to like make a movie on an iPhone to show that you could do it.
Right.
And so this thing of like a multi-$100,000 boom camera that he's sitting on top of, and then there's our little thing with an iPhone in it, where the camera's supposed to be.
It's like a little miniature apparatus.
Yeah. It's ridiculous. So that was my first company, and it really showed me that entrepreneurship is super addicting, right?
Yeah.
Like we came up with this idea, it got picked up by TechCrunch, we got a bunch of people buying it, and then a bunch of people started complaining about features of the product, which at first is annoying, but then you realize that like this thing means so much to people that they're willing to complain about it.
Yeah.
It's just it's like a drug that you can't not be part of.
Right. And because you have that like ever eternal question of like when does this stop getting more perfect?
Yeah.
Or like whatever. It's addicting to make it better.
It's just to have an idea and then have people give you money for that idea in product form is like the most incredible feeling in the world. But really what I learned was like every week a new iPhone app would come out because this was like the height of app mania.
Right.
And it would eat another feature of our physical product. And I was like, okay, I'm in the wrong business. Like I need to get into software. So we ended up selling that company, not for like a ton of money. And that's when I really started learning about software and getting on my journey.
So another app would come along and they'd have a software feature that would make up for what your physical product was attempting to do.
Exactly.
Yeah. See, it's crazy because between 2010 and now, right? So that's 11 years. A lot has happened.
Yeah.
I mean, software wise.
Our key feature was that you could put different lenses on it, and now my iPhone has 3 lenses. So
yeah. Right. And they're pretty dang good. Like the portrait mode on iPhone right now is pretty stellar.
That's incredible. Yeah.
I think like as a photographer, like I still see its imperfections because I know it's still doing software work. I can tell because it's like you put it in portrait mode, you take a shot, and then like between the person's arm and their body, you don't have the background blur. So you know it's software not doing it perfectly. It's not actually the lens.
And it's a rolling shutter, which all kinds of other fun stuff.
Yeah. But I will say portrait mode has come a long way since it was first introduced.
Yeah.
Like I feel like it used to be kind of shoddy, to be honest.
Well, so we were trying to put lenses on. So at first it was just like fisheye lenses that you could screw on the outside.
Right.
And then we tried to do, they're called depth of field adapters. So you basically would put like a little piece of glass on it, and then you would put a Canon lens that would put the image onto the glass.
Oh,
and
wild.
then you'd record the glass.
Wild.
Which was like the image sensors were so bad at the time that it was like what a terrible idea, because the actual quality of the photo, though it had depth of field on it, it was still not good.
Right. You're using a tiny little image sensor.
Right. We were putting way too much stuff on way too crappy an image sensor. And so it was one of those things where we're like, all right, software is going to catch up.
Yeah.
We really, at the time, iPhones had just barely surpassed digital cameras. And we were like, well, they might fully surpass digital cameras at some point. Now it's like, digital camera, why would you even buy that?
Yeah.
Unless you're doing what you guys are doing.
Yeah, like unless you have like some sort of mirrorless, or even DSLRs now are, I'm not saying they're like obsolete, but it's like mirrorless just is pretty sick.
Yeah, unless you're doing extremely high, like Hollywood quality stuff.
Yeah.
And now you can get those little $300 hand gimbal thing. It's just insane.
Oh, yeah.
That
totally.
stuff is so cool. DJI, whether or not they're a spying company or whatever,
Right.
but they're really, really cool.
Yep.
But yeah, so that was my first foray into stuff, and then I started learning software because it was just that's where the cool kids
I mean,
are.
that's a great story just for the fun of it, like having to just have that as a part of your life is really cool.
Yeah, it was incredible.
We did this fun thing, and then we stopped and we did another fun thing.
Yeah, that's the whole fun of entrepreneurship, right? It's like, just keep going. Entrepreneurs are the difference between other people, because they just, oh, well, that didn't work. Well, I'll keep trying it again. It's like,
yeah, it's like a tolerance for that, and not looking at those things as the endings as failures per se.
Yeah.
I think
entrepreneurship is all about time horizon, right? Like if you have a short time horizon and how you think, then you're not going to be a good entrepreneur. But if you think long term, like my current job, I was originally going to start another company. And then I realized by looking at this company as somebody I wanted to use as a service provider that I didn't know enough about the industry.
Oh, that's interesting.
And so I thought, okay, what better way to know than to work for them? And so I pestered the CEO till he hired me.
Yeah, see, that's good. I respect that tenacity. So then let's talk about your little crypto journey. And crypto's so hot right now.
Crypto is so hot right now.
It's all the rage. So how long ago was that? Probably a handful of years ago.
Yeah. So this was like 2016 was like the last major bull run, and right before then I was a software engineer, and so I started looking at the Ethereum network because it was a Turing complete virtual machine that lived on the Ethereum blockchain, which if you're not a nerd, it basically just means a computer that lives on a bunch of different computers. And I thought, this is cool. So I started learning smart contract development, started learning about, anybody could release a token. People were making just insane amounts of money. And I'm sort of someone who's always believed in freedom and opportunity, right? Like there's studies that show that the release of smartphones in Africa has led to like enormous amounts of increase in freedom because it
makes perfect sense. I look at things as like information availability and connectedness. It's just like a world changing phenomenon.
Yeah. People are inherently good, and the more information you give them, the better they will be. There's always going to be bad actors, but more information, more freedom is always better.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So that brought me to, I got to do something in this space. I've got to build something that moves this all along. And so people were trying to build decentralized applications. And one thing that I thought was like, if all these decentralized applications are existing, but they're all still using centralized services, and one of the major services that mobile applications need to use is a map. So we decided, what if we built a decentralized mapping solution? So it's a way to store geospatial data, like where the studio is,
right,
stored online or on chain, as opposed to storing it in Google's database, so that if one day you guys say something that somebody doesn't like, and then they say, well, let's erase that studio from the world, they can't do that anymore.
Right. So let me repeat back to you, make sure I heard that correctly. The actual app you were developing was a geospatial. It was geospatial and blockchain smashed together.
Yeah.
Right.
Geospatial data on the blockchain.
Got it. That's super cool. Yeah. I think everybody has a sense of how, you say centralized, a lot of the leverages and power is. Power is a weird word in this conversation, but technically it's kind of can be true.
Yeah.
But Google, I mean, I mean, who uses Bing?
Yeah, right.
Right. And so everything lives on Google. I tell my clients all the time, I'm like, you got to get a Google listing if you don't have one.
Mm-hmm.
We have to use it
Mm-hmm.
and fully fill it out. Because if you do all the things that Google has determined in all their mightiness to be, like they'll actually reward behaviors that they like line out. Same with like Facebook algorithms and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because it's all a computer program. There's not like, a special person sitting in a closet somewhere like bumping people up. I mean, maybe I don't want to go down that rabbit
on the
hole.
edge cases that might happen.
Yeah. But generally speaking, it's just programmed, which means it's coded. So do what works for that.
Yeah, just do what your overlords say and you'll be fine.
Yeah. But to that point of the overlords, it's like, hey man, that's ripe for censorship.
Yeah, well, and it's ripe. It's ripe for somebody, whether they're well-intentioned or not, to take action because they have the opportunity. It's like if you see a problem and you want to fix it, and if you have the power to fix it, then you're going to. And your fix may not jive with a lot of other people, or it might. It's, we're all individuals, and our views are going to be a little bit different about what the right solution is. And sometimes getting caught in the crossfire is not always fun.
Yeah,
but if it's decentralized, then that opportunity isn't there in the first place for it to be taken, or for that power to be applied.
Yeah.
So
There's a book called The Spider and the Starfish, and it just talks about how like a spider is a centralized organism, and if you cut off a leg, the spider is hobbled, and if you cut them in half, will grow into two starfish.
Right.
And so decentralization is actually a feature, not a bug.
Mm-hmm.
And resilience is like the more decentralized something is, the more resilient it is. That's why we as a country are organized in the way that we are. So
Right.
Can you explain to everybody like how blockchain plays into that? Right.
Yeah,
So probably maybe there's somebody listening that just they've heard the word blockchain, but maybe they don't know what it means.
Yeah. So the easiest way I explain it is like in the terms of Bitcoin. And so right now and this is funny because I work in money now, but if you want to move, if I want to send you $20, I have to tell Wells Fargo to send you $20. And then Wells Fargo has to communicate with your bank, Chase, and Chase says, okay, he's allowed to have $20.
Mm-hmm.
Those are just computers. It's just computers sitting somewhere transferring money between each other.
I'll ask my dad to send it to your dad.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
My mom said it's okay.
Yeah. Please. And so Bitcoin is just a bunch of computers that don't require anybody's permission. So it's a bunch of computers linked together, and I say, I want to send you $20, and then it just broadcasts that transaction. The other way to think about it is the Medicis. They invented the double ledger entry bookkeeping system in the 500s or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
No, 1500s. Doesn't matter. And that was a revolution. They say like income in, income out. Blockchain is just triple entry bookkeeping. Income in, income out, and then a third ledger that anybody can read.
Okay. Yeah.
That's all it is.
That's super clean explanation.
Public ledger, yeah.
I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Okay, so then, so you created this blockchain and geospatial solution.
Mm-hmm.
So was the purpose of that to make it so that geospatial locations could be verified?
Yeah, it was so
more
that,
or less, or
yeah. There's this problem in blockchain. Like the blockchain is a closed network, and so if there's any data that isn't on it, it has to go out through a trusted third party, which sort of eliminates the need for a blockchain in the first place, right?
Right.
If you're trusting a third party, you're
Right.
might as well just be on Google, might as well be a spreadsheet. So if there was any data that needs to be on chain, and it turns out like part of why we weren't super successful is because this kind of data doesn't really need to be on chain. Like unless you're in somewhere where there's an adverse political environment, like most stuff, my views on this world have changed. But at the time, the idea was if there's going to be a decentralized Uber, it needs a decentralized map.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, fair enough.
I mean, it's not actually a great premise, but that was our thought.
Right.
And so we were, 3 engineers and me, and we started building this. We were building sort of like a proof of concept game to make it, to show people why you would need this.
Right.
Turns out
to put that technology on display. And
it's like a classic problem with software engineers is like, I built this thing that anybody can use for anything. And somebody goes, well, what should you use it for? And they go, anything. And it's like, okay, but show me one thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, prove that it actually adds value to somebody. And so through the process of doing that, we were introduced to this other company that was doing a similar thing. They had raised a bunch of money through an ICO, which was the big deal at the time. And they had like 2 engineers and, $12 million. And we had no engineer or 3 engineers and no money. So
right.
I was texting with one of their guys and I just said, you should just buy us. And he said, okay.
Right.
So that was basically it. We met them for dinner in San Francisco, and then we flew to their offices in San Diego and negotiated the deal, and then
turned the page.
And then we turned the page, and then did a bunch of really complicated paperwork, and
You're like, what do you need my left leg for? I don't understand this clause, right? Is this slang?
Yeah. Well, yeah. And then after a few months, they were like, so you're moving to San Diego, right? And I was like, what? And so, that's the fun of selling your company is that you are no longer in charge.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was still an incredible experience. I always had a dream to start a company and sell it. I did that. Turns out that, like, careful what you wish for, right? It's never exactly what you expect.
Right.
And so then I just sort of started doing other stuff.
Yeah, that's great. And then so let's talk about Moov now, because this is what you're currently working on. Moov is venture backed, right? Or at least it's funded, right?
Yeah. So Moov is we've raised a seed round. Everything's crazy in the venture world right now. So we raised a seed round in August, and then we raised a Series A round in December. Mm-hmm. So and the Series A round was by Andreessen Horowitz, which is a dream to be funded by A16Z. So
right. I was on the internet looking them up. I was like, Googling A16Z. It's what Graham said in the email.
You're like, oh yeah, I know who they are.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, Andreessen, and then it's like, oh, they funded Facebook and they funded,
basically everybody.
Everybody. I mean,
Right.
you go on their website and you're like, okay, so you got your fingers in everything.
Yeah, Mark Andreessen is the guy who wrote the Netscape browser.
Oh,
Okay.
So he's
that's super cool. I love it when people do something cool and successful, and then they help other people do it.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
it's just I love that.
They're really incredible. So Mark Andreessen has a quote that's software is eating the world, and then they got someone named Angela Strange who runs their fintech group, and she has a quote that says every company is a fintech company, they just don't know it yet. And so that's really the premise under which Moov was founded. The founder of our company is a guy named Wade Arnold. He started a company called Banno like 13 years ago, and this is when all of your local community banks didn't have a mobile app or
Right.
even a website that you could use. And you may not know this, but most of you, like, interacting with your bank, unless it's like Chase, who has a really great software experience,
Right.
not a great experience.
Right.
Like if you go to their websites, it's like not mobile friendly, all that stuff. And part of that has to do with there are only 5 core banking providers. So all the banks in the world really run on 5 different pieces of software. And those pieces of software were initially started in the 70s, and then they just like buy companies and cobble them on top of each other. And somebody explained it like there's like vestigial organs of software that are sitting on this stuff. So
There was a case, was that last year that I can't remember the bank, but they accidentally paid off they accidentally transferred like $900 million because the software was
it was a week
counterintuitive.
Ago. It was a week
Oh,
ago.
was that?
Yeah. They showed the interface, and it's like a Windows 95 interface, and
Right.
all the terms are like shortened, even though they don't need to be,
Right.
to like explain what the fields are.
Yeah.
And the guy just accidentally wired $900 million, and the banking law in New York State basically says that the people who received it aren't under any obligation to pay it back because it was his fault.
Yo.
Right. Well, and it, luckily it wasn't like, it was money that they were owed anyway.
Yeah.
But now that bank just became it was supposed to be just the middleman between the creditors and the debtor. And now it just bought the debt, basically, is what they did.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally crazy.
I'm going to leave names of banks out of this story,
Sure,
but
sure.
basically, within the past year, I switched from one credit union to another, and it's like, they do a lot of all the credit unions, like let's just say, do a lot of business together,
Mhm.
whatever that means. I don't know the details. I just know it's true.
Yeah.
I know that because you can do shared banking. You know, you go to one credit union and get a withdrawal or do a deposit, even though you use another credit union, because they're like in cahoots. It's called a co-op network or whatever. They make it so that they can all get customers and be somewhat competitive with big banks, like ATM network wise.
Yep.
You know, like they want to be as available as the big banks to their customers. And anyway, I was with one of them, and let's say their technology is terrible and I could not stand it anymore.
Yeah.
And let's just say this happens to also be one of the bigger credit unions with the bigger names.
Yeah, they have a tough time, right? So I found out I've talked to this one credit union and they have like $1 billion in deposits, and they don't have their own software engineers on staff.
Wow.
They just
like,
outsource everything.
Yeah. So Wade, he saw this. He was working in fintech, and so he decided he had done core integration. So doing software to banking core integrations is notoriously ridiculous. Like it's XML calls, which are the antiquated version or it's SOAP calls, which is a new software protocol. The new one is REST, and that uses JSON, which is a file format.
Right.
Sorry for everybody who doesn't care about that stuff. But so
things are changing.
It's getting better, I promise. Now we've got Graph Protocol, but that's a different thing. So he was building he was doing consulting basically. Mm-hmm. So he would go to a small bank, he would build a website for them, and then he realized he was doing the same thing over and over again. So he turned it into a software product and could just sell this piece of software to a bunch of community banks so they could all have better mobile experiences.
Right.
And so Jack Henry, which is one of the 5 cores, said, why don't we buy you? And so they bought his company. He worked there for about 10 years, and then he left and started investing in startups that were going, we're going to do this amazing, super whiz-bang interface to the banks, and we're going to integrate with all 5 cores. And he would give them money, and then 6 months later, he'd go, where are you at? And they're like, we're still integrating into the cores. And he's like, ugh. And so he knew that problem well enough that we started building open source core integrations. So all the things you do at your bank, your wire, your credit deposit, your debit cards, all of that stuff, those are actually protocols.
Okay.
And they all have their own rules. So the big one is ACH. ACH is actually a file format.
Right.
It's only 96 characters wide because that's how wide punch cards were in the 70s.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, wow.
And if you want to write JSON that turns into an ACH file, you have to read a 400-page PDF and then turn all the rules in that PDF
into 96 characters
into software that converts JSON into 96 characters. And so, like, you can imagine every kid who comes out of Stanford is like, oh, I'm going to reinvent, and then they're like, here's a PDF. And he's like, wait, what? That's really what this is? And so that's where Wade goes, I know how to do this. And so we built an open source piece of software now that companies tell me all the time, you saved us 6 to 12 months worth of development because all we have to do is send JSON, we get back an ACH file, we give it to our bank.
That's pretty incredible.
Super cool. Why does that matter? Why do you care about this? So embedded finance. Now we get to talk about why people. So like classic software problem, right? Like we built this thing. Anyone can use it for ACH. Great. Why would you want to use it for ACH?
Because that's how I like to get paid. So I don't have to pay credit card fees.
That's exactly right. Yeah. And everybody likes to get paid that way. So like there's this idea of vertical finance and embedding finance into software products, right? So software is managing everything that you do. Why do you also have to go get a bank? And so like an example that I like to talk about, what is an example I like to talk about? One of my favorites is there's a company that does they do dental office practice management.
Okay.
So you are a new dentist, you open up an office and you have to manage your employees, book people, yada, yada,
Yeah, you have to be a business owner, and that's not what you went to school for.
Right.
You're like, I fix teeth.
Then you got to hire someone who does that, and then it's like eating into your profits, right? So, and so you buy a software suite to manage your practice for you, but then you have to email people invoices to get paid.
Right.
Not super helpful, right? No. So that software company that you bought can embed banking into what they're doing.
Right.
And so then you can just have someone pays you instead of that money going to your bank and then you having to account for it later in your software.
Right.
Your software is your bank.
Oh, okay.
And you could send someone an email that says, pay me right here. And they click a button, enter their bank account details, and then the money gets pulled out.
So is that different than QuickBooks because it's faster because QuickBooks like holds money?
QuickBooks would, correct me if I'm wrong, but you still need a bank.
Yep.
I mean, they just rolled out a product called QuickBooks Cash.
Oh, you're saying this software is the bank.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
So you don't have to wait for it to go from mommy to daddy. It just comes from daddy.
Right.
Or your friend.
Yeah.
Because
I'm not sure I get the metaphor, but I think I know what you're saying.
I'm still on the the person you're traditionally.
Yeah.
Your client goes to pay you, and you give them an ACH option to pay you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it still has to go from their bank to your bank.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
So you give your client details to pay you by ACH.
Right.
They say, okay, they go to their bank and say, I authorize this person to pay money. That goes to your bank.
Right.
And then you have to read somehow your bank statement and enter that back into your QuickBooks or your accounting software, right?
Right.
Or even in this case, your software that shows that Dave paid for his dental surgery.
Right. Where I think QuickBooks has it set up to where it'll just automatically read it for you.
It'll read it for you, but
Yeah.
the next evolution, even for QuickBooks, is
Right.
to actually embed that bank account within QuickBooks
Right.
itself.
That
Right.
makes
And so it
sense.
doesn't have to read it from anywhere. It's
Right.
just part of QuickBooks, which is like a
Right.
duh sort of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. Remove a step.
Remove a step. It also works for
So is that how Moov works?
so we provide the capability to embed those financial services within that software.
Oh, so if you're making a software, so is it kind of like you could sell it to QuickBooks?
Yeah, we can sell
so that QuickBooks could be better.
exactly.
Okay, got it.
So we don't sell to the end consumer. We sell to one person who then
Right.
offers bank accounts to their consumers.
Mm-hmm.
It's very meta.
Well, I think that is how innovation works. I don't have a perfect word for it, but it's something like I'm working on. It's like umbrella theory or something where it's like if you can make a bigger umbrella that has other umbrellas inside it, then you're going to be in business for a while until somebody else makes a bigger umbrella that you go under.
Yeah,
Right.
It's the value chain. You're
Yeah.
going up the value chain.
Yeah.
QuickBooks is one step up the value chain from you hand doing your books, but when they
Yeah.
add banking into it,
Yeah.
there's even more because think about in maybe the who's he what's it the dentalist office
Right.
example.
Yeah.
You've got somebody who is your office manager and they need to buy stuff for
Right.
the office. Before this sort of service, you would have to say, here's my credit card, my personal credit card,
Right.
or my business credit card, go do something. With this situation, you could just say, issue Jane a debit card.
Okay, cool.
And then she gets issued a debit card from the business. That money comes directly from it. You can set a limit on it. You can do all that. And you
Wow.
can do all this right now through companies like Brex or Ramp. But having it all under one thing, that's all part of the program. The other cool part about this is that you can offer them, you can offer financing options specific to that kind of company. So
Right.
like if you're this software company, not only do they have banking, but they can say, all right, well, if you want to renovate your office, we know because we see the balance sheet of hundreds of thousands of dental offices that if you do X, Y, and Z renovations, it's going to increase your business.
Right.
And so we can give you specific terms that are more beneficial than you'll get from any other bank because we know your business better than anybody
because you have data.
because we have data.
That's
Exactly.
pretty cool.
Yeah. I added a car to my insurance policy yesterday, right? It's relevant, I promise.
That sounds good. It started out well, and you're really excited about it. So.
Yeah. Well, it was just funny because what you're talking about is data quality.
Yeah.
And having it, having better data than somebody else. Well, like they're asking me these questions, to get it added on the car on the policy, and they're hilarious questions. They're like the most vague, like low quality data questions you could possibly ask as to establish their like risk factor for insuring you.
Yeah.
They're like, do you park it at your house? Yes. Like, is it a commuter? No. Or whatever. Like all these basic questions, which have value, don't get me wrong, but it's kind of like that. Those are the questions, like there was literally less than 7 questions.
Yeah.
And that's how they determine like what your policy price is going to be.
It's ridiculous.
And I'm like, that is low quality data. Like I didn't lie about anything, but you could just lie.
Yeah.
Or whatever. Like it's just super, super, super low quality. But then So in your example, you know, you have thousands of examples of a similar operation.
Yep.
And so you're having operation specific data. Like that's high quality data.
Super high quality. Yeah.
Yeah. And
It's like Tesla insurance versus regular car
I
insurance.
can't believe it's
Right.
2020. When did all the everybody getting pissed off about Facebook collecting data start? 2017?
Something like that. Yeah.
Like, I mean, there might have been people pissed off about it
I've been
before
pissed
then.
on it forever, but yeah.
Right,
yeah.
well, you've probably known about it since inception, but my point is like people who use Facebook don't realize that they're not even Facebook's customers
Yeah. They sort of do now, I think.
by now.
Yeah.
But it's like, come on, like, because they got hit like a freight train
Yeah.
with all this information, and it's all over in the news, and it's like, bro, where do you think they get their money? Like nobody's like, people were not thinking about it. Like how would this thing even exist? You know, I think there was a senator when they were grilling Zucks.
Yeah.
Like a few years ago, he's like, I just don't understand how you guys have so much money. He's like, Senator, we run ads. And like, I don't know if somebody had to explain it to the guy, but he's like, look, we have a show and a hell of a lot of people watch the show. Right. And not only that, but they actually make the show. We don't even have to put it on. We just have a place for them to do it.
Yeah.
It's like a community show.
We put people in a glass box and watch their behavior, and then we
And
toss
they-
things into the box we know they might like.
Yeah. And then we sell advertising space to people who are willing to pay for it. And then it's like, not that that's like, I don't know, maybe it's worth discussion. Like, is that bad? I don't know. Like, I find Facebook ads useful when I run them.
I think the answer is sort of going back to the decentralization question. It's like more data is good, but it has to be weighed with freedom. Like, you know, we can, every discussion always comes down to it's a balance.
You want a calculator app? We're going to need your social security number. What? I just 64 times. Yeah. But then I always wonder about like Google too, right? Because like you're having a conversation. People are like, do your phones listen to you? In my opinion, I'm like, your phone absolutely listens to you.
100%.
100%. No doubt in my mind. It's not up for debate. Like half of the apps on your phone have access to your microphone. Like unless that thing is like completely powered off.
Yeah, even then that's not.
Even then, I'm like, it's part the conspiracy theorist part of me, which is actually not that big, is like, this is why they stopped getting rid of removable batteries.
Oh, so you couldn't
You
pull
can't.
Right.
You can't pull it. I don't really think that's why they do it, but
No,
sure would be a good benefit.
That's more of a profit motive. Like never
Yeah.
subscribe to conspiracy where you could subscribe to profit motive.
No,
Like,
I agree with that. It's
and I
definitely.
don't begrudge them at all, right? Like Apple's done so much work to have this system, and I think did you see the controversy about how they're not letting Facebook take as much data? And
Yeah, the
Facebook
iOS
takes out
14
this, like,
update. Yeah.
Facebook's like, they're killing small businesses. Like, please,
Uh-huh.
please, no, thank you.
You know what it does is it makes it harder on marketing agencies to target.
Right, which hurts Facebook's self-service ad business, which is the majority. So, you guys know Chamath?
No.
So Chamath is one of the early people at Facebook, one of the first like business people. And
Is he the guy that left and then?
now he talks a bunch of crap about it.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it's
yeah.
basically SPAC'd every company that's ever existed.
Okay, go on with the story. This is gonna be good.
So he gave a talk to Stanford students many years ago, and he talked about how they had, when they were going to turn on ads, they had 3 initiatives. One was like sponsored content, so like you could take a post and you could make it sponsored. One of them was
boost
like
it.
boost it, yeah. And the other one was like some sort of like layover ads or something. And then the third one was a self-service ad platform. And the distribution of talent was like these 2 first ones got all the talent, and the last one, self-service ad platform, was 3 engineers, and that ends up being 70% of the revenue.
Wow.
That was Facebook Business Manager.
Yeah. That self-service ad platform is and it's just funny how you don't know what's going to be huge, and then it's throwing enough bets at the wall. But
Well, now it's turned into like, I mean, you can do it yourself, but you know, we do that on behalf of our clients because it's now such a robust solution.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, it's literally more robust. It's like if you use like a program like QuickBooks or anything like that on your computer, Like Facebook Business Manager is like a full software,
Yeah.
like it's web-based, but it's
a whole knowledge domain. My cousin works at a company that's all they do is manage Facebook ads for people, and so he does it for like his one client is a major dog food brand,
right.
And then
they're spending tens of thousands of dollars constantly. It's just like
daily.
Yeah.
It's just insane amounts of money.
Facebook, what they did is they built these incredible pipelines of for just massive cash flow.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like from a money making standpoint, it's just like super brilliant, like unfathomably brilliant.
Yeah. Well, I think everybody gets caught up in being so worried about Facebook, being so worried about Amazon, being so worried about all these big players.
Right.
And back to our very first part of this conversation about time horizons, I think that if you look with a long enough time horizon, don't be worried, right? Like Woolworths got replaced by Walgreens, which got replaced by Walmart, which got replaced by Amazon, which will get replaced by something else.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Shopify currently is the most applicable thing. But I just think that we're on that sort of, I don't know. I was about to go to space, but I don't know.
No, it's okay. I think you're on Shopify. Earlier, no, it was about a year ago. Exactly. So before any shutdowns happened or anything, I was thinking about that. And so I invested some money in Shopify. Oh, yeah. And it was a great decision this past year. Let me tell you what. Like, I already had a little bit of Amazon, but I had that thought. And I said, if Amazon is this, what's next? Meaning Amazon's doing a marketplace thing. Well, like, what if you could, what Shopify is kind of like is like, okay, Amazon has profiles for the sellers, right? You can sell stuff on Amazon and you have your seller profile, blah, blah, blah. But like, what if that seller profile was basically its own website? Yeah. And it's like, well, that's not what Shopify is, but essentially Shopify makes it easy for you to stand up your e-commerce store. Mm-hmm. And so, which before was like a terribly expensive investment. Sure. And complicated. Yeah. And now it's super simple.
Yeah, they've got their own JavaScript. They've got their own everything.
Yeah. And I guess I just thought about that and I said, as people, whether it's, true or not, as people feel like they're getting poorer and poorer, they're going to stop looking at like their 9-to-5 job as like this thing that works or is comprehensive. Yeah. To provide. And so people are like side hustle mania, and now since everything's already online, it's like Shopify's just going to go through the roof. Like everybody's going to have a Shopify store. Yeah.
Well, I think
even big giant brands just use Shopify. Like, why not?
Yeah. Why reinvent the wheel when you want to have something like this?
Yeah. Like just because you have a bunch of money doesn't mean you want to waste it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the things that are available just to be able to like one-click integrate things in the back end of Shopify, it's just insane. Like, why wouldn't you do that? A friend of mine and I, this is not politics, but it's part of the joke.
You're good.
When Trump first started running, my friend and I were like, what we need to do is set up a bot that takes every one of his tweets and puts it on a T-shirt and replies to him that says, "Here's your shirt for sale." And we called it Trump a shirt. And so we did it. We did it in Shopify in half a day. It took his tweets, it put them on, a service that is a fulfillment center.
Right.
And then it just published it, and then it tweeted back at him like, "This was a great tweet. We put it on a shirt." and then we shut it down because we were like, "This is silly." We sold one.
Right.
And then, here we are 6 years later and we're like, we probably would be millionaires at this point.
That's so funny.
Oh, that's crazy.
Just incredibly powerful tool. Right. So I have this talk about
I love that interplay between like the digital and the physical world on that one.
That's so fun. Yeah. Yeah. What you can do right now. I mean, so NFTs, digital art is like a huge thing right now. My friend just sold. So the very first digital art on the Ethereum network was these things called CryptoPunks. So there were only 10,000 little digital faces that were made.
Okay.
And a friend of mine bought 2. few years ago, and he just sold 2 of them for $50,000 each.
Are they like a novelty? Like
It's a novelty, yeah. It's just and people are using them as like their profile image on Twitter, just to prove that they are big deals.
That's so weird, man.
It's crazy, but
so they're like emojis, like crypto emojis.
Basically, yeah, they're little like 8-bit character heads.
Yeah,
and they're randomly generated, like they're literally generated
by
software.
Yeah.
But I have this theory that
somebody paid $50,000 for one of those.
Somebody offered another guy that I follow on Twitter $275,000 for one of his. And
people
didn't
love
take
novelty, man. That's
art is not real. Art is like a status, right? And so why does that status need to be?
Yeah.
And most art lives in tax-free ports in warehouses and is bought and sold and never moved. So
right,
it doesn't really make any sense. I know. One day we'll have enough money to do stupid things like that.
I'm going to go home and make some toast and spread some peanut butter on it and take a picture of it and put it on eBay and see what happens.
There was that thing at Art Basel. The guy sold the banana taped to the wall for $150,000.
That's right.
Whatever that was.
That's crazy.
Gosh.
But so I have this theory that digital goods via, in video games, in just like virtual worlds, in online, I think the GDP of digital goods will outstrip physical goods.
Oh, yeah. Have you, what platform is it? Amazon? There's like an Amazon original show called Upload.
Oh, yeah.
Did you watch
I never
it?
watched it, but I saw the previews for it.
Basically, the premise is like, right before you die, you basically like have your head severed off with a laser, and then your brain, the information in your brain gets uploaded.
Yeah.
To the net.
Yeah, it's all a simulation anyway. So yeah,
right. So why not just continue it? And so then there's the physical world. It's cool because the story goes between the physical world and the net, or what, I forget what they call it, but I'm just calling it the net. And so it's funny because the net is hosted on Verizon. But they have a different name for it. It's called Horizon. And
like Huli.
And that's like the premium. Like if you don't have Horizon, like you have the cheapo. Like so if your relative gets uploaded, you want it. You're it's kind of like a status thing if like they get uploaded to Horizon instead of like the Sprint or whatever. And so like
Metro PCS of the afterlife.
And then the those carriers, they also like curate the environment that the simulation that like your person gets, like they become a simulation. Right. Yeah. Their person just gets uploaded. And so they also create the environment in which they live. And then you can choose like, like Cherry Acres, like, or like, they're just gonna, I can't afford that. Like they're just gonna have to live in an apartment.
Yeah.
And I don't know where I was going with this. What were we talking about? Right
Digital goods.
Oh yeah. So then like you can actually like buy digital goods, like a digital taco, and send it to your like loved one in like that digital heaven, or like
a prison store.
Yeah. It's so funny. So like the person in the simulation's like walking around, like they're in the park, and then like all of a sudden it's like your girlfriend sent you a gift. It's like bing bing, like a taco like pops up and starts like rotating, and I'm like, oh my God. And so then I'm like, okay, so there's people in Hollywood writing this.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how many times do you see something in Hollywood and then it comes true? It becomes reality however long after that, even if it's not like doesn't resemble it perfectly.
Yeah.
But just to your point, I'm like, the digital goods thing, people are like, I ate a digital taco today. You're like, did you? Like, why did you spend money on that? Oh, I'm going to put it on eBay one day.
Yeah. Yeah. It's status symbols. It's all, all things are status symbols, right? So like we have no reason to. We could all live in the desert and drink water out of a stream, but we choose to drive Teslas, right? So I think, I think it's going to be really funny to see what happens. Think about like Gen Z kids right now, and all that matters to them is how they appear on TikTok, right?
Right.
So what if you could buy something that showed up in your TikTok videos with you, and it was the only one like it? And
right.
So
yeah,
what do they care?
Right.
What do they really care about what they're wearing? They don't see each other because they don't go to school anyway.
It's a good point. It's all pinned on status.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nobody cares about driving that's under 21 right now.
I always have these funny thoughts about like you'd have an appliance in your house that kind of it's like maybe like microwave size or something, or like if you're a baller, you have a big one that's like the size of a mini fridge. But what it really is like a 3D printer. So when you like buy something on Amazon and then it like prints in your maker. Yeah. And you're like, oh, cool, there's my baseball bat.
I mean, that exists right now. I mean, you can do that. So slightly off topic, but we're in gold country, so it makes sense. Have you heard of this guy named Control Pew?
No.
It's basically just 3D printed gun makers.
Oh, right.
Yeah. He basically
you just 3D print your top or your
bottom. Yeah. So they have an AK-47 bottom now, and then they've actually got their own from scratch, fully formed 3D printed gun called the GP9.
Yeah, it's like watch the government try to deal with this now.
they've been trying to.
I mean, what do they know, right? Like they barely know about how Facebook ads work, and so they're going to be like, "Well, you need to stop them from doing this." And it's like, okay, explain to me what that digital file is. A what? Never mind.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's wait for this hearing to be over, and then everyone goes back to their business.
Yep.
I mean, how far out do you think that is before we just start like buying things on Amazon that just like print in our house? Or like maybe not Amazon. It's like maybe that'll never happen, but I feel like there's got to be some sort of like even faster way to obtain a product. Yeah. Like just by willing it into existence.
There's networks right now where you can buy, you basically, most 3D printed files are available for free, but there's some with it, you buy them in like a 3D printed file store. And then there are networks of 3D printers that you can just say, send it to this person, and that person gives you a fee for what they charge on top of what the plastic costs.
Right.
So that exists now. It's just when does it come into your room, and when is it 3D printed bug meat that makes it a sandwich, that you're buying?
Right.
There's a guy that I follow that says like, buy Bitcoin so you don't have to eat 3D printed bug meat in your capsule. And it's like,
oh my gosh.
Crypto people are really fun to follow on Twitter. But yeah, I think we're closer. There's a company called Varda Space Industries that just launched, and their whole thing is manufacturing in space. And part of that is 3D printing. One of the major drawbacks to it is having to put in gravity support to something while you print it.
Right.
So if you 3D print something in space, you don't have to do that. So there's a whole lot of things that are unlocked.
There's more options available.
Yeah.
Yeah, because right now you have to rely on gravity for it to all like.
Well, if you want to create a structure that will be self-supporting when it's dry, it's not self-supporting when it's wet.
Right.
And so you've got to take that into account.
But in space, you don't. Yeah, in space, you don't have to do that. You can
just floats.
Just floats. And there's a rocket company that's 3D prints 90% of its rockets right now.
This is so cool.
It's so cool. We're in like the coolest time ever to be alive.
What do you think's next?
I mean, space.
Yeah.
Space is I have this theory that like we stop navel gazing and worrying about what's happening on Earth and totally focused on going to Mars as a world. I think you'd sort of eliminate a lot of the squabbling that happens locally, and people would just get super jacked about becoming interplanetary.
It's like, whoa. If you're going to send the nukes, do it on Mars.
So that you can heat it up and we can terraform the planet. Exactly. That's exactly what we need.
Like, get that attitude out of here. I don't want any of that. It belongs on Martian soil.
It's the new frontier. I mean, it's going to be like the Wild West all over again. I mean,
that's definitely true.
If you don't think that Elon Musk is going to become king of Mars, you're crazy. Once you get enough stuff out there, what are people going to do? Stop him? Like, he's already launching rockets from the ocean.
Right.
You mean international territory?
Right.
Duh. Come on now.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't mean to give away his plan.
No, it's true though. I mean,
it's like, who's going to send a rocket out to Mars to fight him?
Right.
Like, he's the only one doing it.
Yeah,
so.
we're going to ask him for a ride.
Right.
Meanwhile, on Earth, we're still dropping calls.
Right, exactly.
I was talking to Charlie. I was like, I feel like every time there's some sort of like riot or like domestic like disaster or like natural disaster, like there's always some like concurrently happening like space exploration like achievement of like humankind happening like the same day. It's like one like while they're like there's people rioting in this one city, like Elon Musk is like landing a rocket for like the 18th time on a barge or like sending Starlink up, and it's like crazy levels of like, I don't even know how to explain that.
Yeah, I think we just need to. It's hard, right?
Like the contrast between our problems and our successes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all about, time horizon, right? Like there's themes in your life, but if you're living paycheck to paycheck, you can't think beyond the single day.
Right.
Right. And so like the more you better yourself, then the longer time horizon you can think, the more opportunity you realize that exists in the world. And so, I don't know. I think, part of what you guys do, helping people start businesses, is super important because you need to democratize that information.
Mm-hmm.
Part of my job at Moov is all about getting more information out there. We have these open source protocols. You can pay us to implement a version of it, or I'm currently producing tons and tons of free educational content so that if you watch all that stuff, you should be able to use that plus our open source libraries and launch a bank within your product without paying anybody other than the sponsor bank. But that's a different story altogether. Right. So I think that's very exciting as far as like the future of what's available to people out there. Also things like Lambda School where you don't have to pay to go to school and then you can become a software engineer. I went to a coding school and that like tripled my income after 6 months. So I think more people, that kind of opportunity. I don't want my kids to even go to college. I want them to just go to coding school.
Yeah. The college thing is weird.
Well, I agree with you. It's and it's part of what we like our 11 goal is to like build an education suite that teaches people, hey, you want to run a business successfully, you don't want to just own a job, like this is what you do, and we'll put you through the thing, and it'll like coding school, it's gonna really multiply your ability to provide for your family and provide a service without like pulling your hair out. Like I can't do all these jobs, or I can't, I don't know how to do this, and I'm caught up in just the day to day. But that's, I think that's the way out. Yeah.
People just need to see, people need hope and a path.
Yeah.
And if you can provide those two things, then people can do anything. So yeah.
That's super cool. Well, I think we should just wrap it up. I think that was a good episode.
Cool.
Sounds good. We did an hour.
Yep.
Cool.
Beauty. Awesome.
Thanks for coming on the show, Graham.
I appreciate it. It's always fun to do this kind of thing. So thanks.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Sweet.